Welcome to a brand new Kirblog. We are gonna talk about making shows, especially on the internet, 'cause both of us did it, even though it's really fucking hard. Hi. I had about 5 whole seconds to come up with that one. Good. Welcome. This is a somewhat impromptu Kirblog, but we're doing this a little bit ahead of time. But this is going to be coming out on Tuesday, August 16th, the same day as the season finale, right?
Yeah.
Of a show by my not first time guest, second time, because you were in fact you were on the first. You and Brittany, who I just had about a week or so ago, were both on the first Kirblog that ever had other people in it. But would you like to properly reintroduce yourself, since it's not in a crowd of like five other people all combating for talking?
Yeah, sure. My name's Adam Tilford. I am an animator, writer, person on the internet that does shit.
Such as the show that was having a season finale today that fucking get the name of, please.
Yeah. So I do an animated web series called Shattered Heaven, and I'm about to finally end the first season after an agonizing 3 years of hell.
Finally.
Yeah, God.
Wait, did you start a year after I did Tome? Is that right?
When did Tome first?
I started in 2011.
2 years, because 2013.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, but when Tome, the irony here is when you first started Tome, I was working on my 5th episode of the original version of the series, but that I'm sure we'll go into.
Right.
I was watching your earlier Kirblog about reboots and reimagine. I was like, this is hilarious, because that's going to be a thing.
Well, no, it's funny because I used myself as an example in that, and and kind of the pros and cons of that. But so this is the reason this is also impromptu is because Adam hit me up and approached me with an idea for talking about something, and I thought, hey, this would actually make a pretty good Kirblog topic. But also kind of to tie in with the fact that his show has just had a big landmark, and so I wanted to kind of also put that out there in case you guys haven't seen Shattered Heaven. Which I'll have links and stuff and annotations to that. But what are we going to be talking about today, Adam?
We're going to talk about the pains of making a project and actually seeing it through.
Actually doing it?
Yeah, what a concept.
Well,
oh my God.
Well, because I guess it's worth saying. So I have talked about bits and pieces of this before, usually by myself. Although I think I think Trailer Drake and we talked a little bit about like when you're, doing any kind of content creation on the internet, and I've definitely had a lot of different conversations about this. But you're one of the few other people like myself who have made a long form type of animated content on the internet. In terms of because you typically go for about TV show length for your episodes, like I do.
It's like that's the funny. Like originally. They were actually like half that. Like season finale is 22 minutes. Right. That's the longest one I've done. Like the reboot. Mm-hmm. Originally I was like cutting them like in half. Like I had fuller episodes, but then I like cut them in half because I was going on the whole. I guess I should try and make them shorter so people might have a better attention span. Let's try that one. Mm-hmm. But like it's like 6 episodes is the first act, but technically it's like 3 really, like 3.5. But I just like cut them up. But yeah, no, it's like the goal was always to. Like approach TV length. The original, which I'll talk about eventually, actually had more TV, like 30-minute episodes, 25-minute episodes. It's when I did the reboot, I kind of was like, let's cut this back and experiment and figure out what the hell you're doing.
Why don't we start at the beginning, because I think this is what we're talking about. So a lot of people, for those of you who maybe don't know, I've told the story many times on many other cases, but the abridged version of in my case is like with Tome. The old version that I did way back on Newgrounds over 10 years ago now, which is insane to me, was 2004 or so, and I just picked up a copy of Flash, and I had this story that Mike Lucas and I had come up with a bunch of elements for and a lot of the characters and everything, and I went about just kind of making it and not really thinking too hard in that case about about where it was going to take me, I guess, in terms of like my career path that wasn't even really started at that point. I was still in school. I guess as far as just like my reputation, it went because Tome, rather TTA was not something that really added much to my reputation. Like it certainly had like a very niche, very small audience, but it was nowhere near the amount that I got from like Parody Rangers and a lot of the Nintendo stuff that I had done shortly after that. But nonetheless, when I had gone through doing that, I had a lot of the major story points kind of plotted out already ahead of time. Like I had a pretty decent roadmap of like what all the little arcs were going to be, and then I just kind of went straight ahead. And I remember there was a time where I was just like making episodes like every other day, and then as I kind of got more elaborate with them towards the second and third season of that show, I was spending more time, and then they were ending up, I think, being close to TV show length, but also in that case because there wasn't like full real animation, it was all sprites and there was no voiceover or anything, so it was much easier to just get those done in a pretty consistent amount of time. I think it would maybe only take me like a couple weeks to get like a full episode done by the time I was doing the ones from back then. But yeah, I did that for a long time. It was like 70 something episodes. And I guess kind of, and because I want to kind of go into this with when you did the old version of Shattered Heaven, my mentality at the time was I was just thinking purely about telling a story, and just it was exciting to me to just get to the next part. And in fact, I didn't even start writing scripts for the episodes until I think like 22 into them, because there were 73 of them total. And I think by the time I got to the 22nd episode, so I was still in the first season, I was like, you know what, I'm going to start writing the actual scripts to these ahead of time. And I was having like general sort of layouts of like what was going to happen in each scene and everything. But otherwise, I was just kind of like, I knew what the episodes were going to be, and I would just kind of work straight ahead and make whatever, and whatever came out, came out. And so that really, not that I ever would suggest any of you out there listening to go back and watch TV Tome Adventures, because it's really not worth watching as opposed to just watching Tome instead. But it was definitely an interesting kind of evolution process for me, and it was from 2004 to I think like close to, I forget if it was 2007 or maybe end of 2006. It's hard to remember, but it was a long time. It was a long time I spent on it, and then But your turn. So tell me a little bit about the first incarnation of Shattered Heaven.
So before the animation started, and I started that in 2007, also on Newgrounds. It's a book. Like it started, like the whole thing started as a book. So it's like I was on a forum for a game called Armored Core. It was a custom make your own mech game, basically. That's where the thing came from. Like a lot of people are like, oh, you're ripping off Gundam. I was like, no, visually I'll give you that, but story, no, not at all.
Well, to be fair though, unlike what I get about like, oh, you ripped off Sword Art. I've never seen Sword Art. You've at least seen Gundam, so I think that's like a little bit more fair for people to make that assessment.
No, it's totally fine. It's just I don't care when people like say, "Oh, you stole the designs." I was like, "That's how I learned how to draw mecha. I am totally fine with that." And it's by watching Gundam and learning how to animate that way, because I didn't go to school for animation. I kind of was just like I'm skipping ahead, but like it was that's how I learned.
I should cut in and say like you primarily more than anything you're a writer. Is that right?
Right. That's what it was. That's what the whole focus was like. So I was a writer on like website Armored Core Online. It's like it started out like as an Armored Core fanfic, like, oh, I like these mech things in this game, but there's no story, let me make a story. And then eventually it evolved, like, oh my god, before it evolved into a better original story, it went through the Dragon Ball Z phase. And I think that was around the time G Gundam came out. So there is fanfic versions of that, not the story when it started becoming original. But it was still like Armored Core. There are fucking super modes, and I was like, oh my god, I really went. Well, I went. Yeah, I think it's like I was like full Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can even admit, I don't think I've talked about this before, but like an ancient version of what is currently Balancing Act, there was a stage of that where everybody has a transformation mode of some kind, and they're all like, themed on this or whatever, and that was just kind of like, and then I realized that I don't really need this.
It's like you enjoy it while you're going there, and you're like, no, I'm like really becoming a writer and thinking for my own, and I don't think that fits anymore. But so like I was writing the story, and I finished the third book iteration, and I was very fortunate because I was very into this community for Armored Core. It was a very tight knit community. Like they're playing tournaments online, and people would go across country to play each other. And so I had like a good, following, on the forum, and like they followed the book as I was writing it in chapters and whatnot. And when I finished the third one, I was like, all right, you know what'd be cool? I would love to do an animation, but I had no concept of how to animate like at all, and it was one of those where I was just like, you know what, let's fuck it, let's just try it, and it's gonna be crap, but let's get used to it. And like, this is the problem. This is something I learned when transitioning out of the first series. Like, originally it was made specifically for that audience on that forum.
Oh yeah, actually, again to cut in real quick. That was actually very similar to what the case was with TTA. I think I've probably said this maybe once before, but there was this forum I went to called the Fallout Shelter, and it was a lot of it was specifically like Sprite comics and Sprite animations and things. I was one of the few people who did animation on there, and typically that was the audience. That was what I had, was just that. And it wasn't until like way later, when like I actually was kind of delving more into Newgrounds, that I built an audience there, because it was being hosted on Newgrounds,
right?
But the actual like audience was coming from was from this forum that I went to. So I totally get that. Yeah, you had like like these specific people that were like probably theorizing this and such about this character.
And the best thing about it was it's like they were following the stuff, and this happened like after the third book, so there was like no good introduction to anyone. It was like, all right, here's these characters, these people know who they are. And learning that the hard way was like, oh, that really does not work. Once I started branching out to other like forums and more of the online internet community and whatnot, I was like, oh wow, they don't understand what the hell is going on. That's a problem. But started out on Newgrounds, putting it out there, and like that was fun. Like, I got 4 complete episodes done, and the longest one, like episode 4, was like 30 minutes, I think. And I like started working on episode 5, but I think episode 5 was around 2011. So I think that was like when you were starting around Tome, the version of that. And at that point, I was kind of like, all right, I'm not sure where I want to go with this, because I started meeting more actual animator friends, like people who went to school for it or in industry, and they were like, "Oh, what you have is good, but the animation's off, the proportions are not that good," and they were and I was kind of like, I was appreciative of the stuff that they were telling me, but there's always that part of you that's like gonna take it personally, even though you're not like overly taking it personally, but you're just like, shit, I'm not good at this.
Well, actually,
crap. Now what do I want to do?
Let's go back for a second. So, like, in the case of when you did the first incarnation of the animated Shattered Heaven, so you had the books to go off of as the source material, more or less.
Originally, kind of, but it's like I made like it was a continuation story.
Oh,
okay. So it wasn't like it was. Like, the current one is directly taken from the book.
Oh, okay. So
that was the lesson that I learned.
So the first show was like after the books had taken place, then?
Right. It was like after like the major climax, and like here's a continuation.
Either way, then, because my actual question was going to be, so when you went into making that, what was kind of your like plan for? Okay, how can I actually do this on a timely, kind of basis? Like, because how many episodes did you do of that?
Oh my god, I had no plan. Because I was so new to the concept, I had no clue. I just dove right into it. It was, I want to make this. I think I wrote 10 episodes. That would have been like the first season. I just got so enveloped in the story that I was like, oh, this is cool, and I can add this, and we're just going to go here and there, and that'll be fun. I'm like, all right, I got 10 episodes written, and that's going to be like the first season's going to end there. So I had like the 10 episodes written like up front. Those were done pretty fast. Because, going in from like a complete writer phase, like I did a complete 180 right now? Yeah. Back then I was just like all about writing and writing this and writing that. And it's like, so I had all that stuff done, and I just wanted to, it was more for me, and originally thinking the audience, of the forums, but then the forum went down and disappeared, and then I was left with, oh, that audience is gone.
Well, when you were, you were using Flash, right? I'm assuming.
Yeah, that was.
Yeah. So, like, did you know, like, okay, I can plan it out this way, like visually, like, I can do the animation this way, so I'll be able to, like, get X amount of episodes done in, a timely amount of whatever.
No, at the time I was just winging it. Like, that's something that I've developed now. And like when the reboot, like you and I had that discussion when we first met.
Well, actually, because I do want to tell that story, but to have everything chronologically, because before that, and I won't spend too much time on this because I know I've talked about ad nauseum, but with Tome, when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this, like after having the encouragement and thinking about it for a while, and even then, like as the story goes, it didn't turn out the way that I was expecting it to, because I thought there was a point where I was designing it that was simplistic enough in a way that I would be able to get one episode done every month. And that absolutely did not end up being the case at all. But either way, I was still able to, go about looking at it in a way that was like, okay, I can go about, just making the episodes in this way so that it's doable for myself and the couple people that I have helping me in this kind of way. You have a significantly smaller crew than I did, though.
Oh God!
Because I did like a good share of the work, especially mainly when it came to the animation for Tome. But you don't have like. I'm assuming you don't have like a sound designer. You don't have like.
No,
like
I do have a sound designer.
Oh, okay. So what is your crew for Shattered Heaven?
It's literally me writing, animating. I have my friend Heidi. She does script. She'll read over the script, make sure it's not crap. Mm-hmm. Natalie Van Sistine does my sound design.
Right, of course.
She has her small plug moment. She has her own audio drama called the Elysium Project.
Yeah, I just saw her. She was in town for Anime Expo.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah.
So she actually jumped on in episode 4 because originally the first 3 episodes I was doing everything. Because I was like, I can only trust myself, and this is what I'm doing. And then she's like, "Do you want help?" I was like, "Yes, please." I was like,
"Yeah,
yes, please." So, and then Brittany was helping with assistant voice direction when she could.
Mm-hmm.
Like around episode 4, we did like in studio stuff in New York City, which was fun.
Awesome.
I know she directed Kira for episode 6. That was fun, and like Kira's performance definitely showed.
Mac would often help with co-directing in some cases for the show as well. So
I have my friend Jonathan Johnson did the original music scoring. So someone I met on the VAA, and he just jumped on.
Wait, hold on. Is that Jonathan Jones?
No, Jonathan Johnson's.
Oh, okay. Because I know there's a Jonathan Jones, I think, that came from the VAA, and I'm just like the character from Mario RPG. Anyway, carry on. So I guess actually let's tell this story, because I remember. So I met you at we mentioned Brittany. I met you at one of her birthday parties.
It was 2013. It was 2013. Like the month before I actually rebooted. Started the actual process.
So what was the? Because I think you actually recount it better than I do. Because all I just remember was like probably being kind of a dickhole.
No, you weren't that bad.
Not that bad. Worse. You were just kind of an asshole.
It was okay. Yeah. So that's the funny thing too. I want to point out how hilarious this is. You look online, and there's not a lot of people that do independent like full long form storytelling animation. Yeah. Like I've known some people that have tried it, but they just kind of fell off because I don't think they understand. Again, with what you were saying before, not a lot of people have it organized or think ahead. They kind of might do it for different reasons.
Yeah.
But there's not a lot of people that do it. There's a lot of different animators, sure, but a lot of them do short content or whatever, but not a lot of or telling a story over episode of content. And I always found it funny that we were both from Long Island.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And like 45 minutes away from each other, and we didn't meet until like 2013.
Well, same with Brittany, but yeah, I mean, that was the joke with that too. But either way,
but yeah, no, it was Brittany's like New Year's Eve thing, like her VA potluck. She wanted a bunch of different actors there. That was the first time I met Mike and Jesse too. Actually.
Oh yeah, they were there too. That's right. Yeah, I think we had just done. If that was 2013, yeah, I think we had just put out episode 6 at that time. So that was like only halfway, not even halfway into the show too. That's crazy.
And I remember, so that was cool. And at that time, it was I was already debating what the hell I wanted to do, because after meeting a lot of better like animation friends and whatnot, I kind of just stopped doing the original iteration because I wanted to do something different. I acknowledged a lot of the issues. I was like, all right, no one knows what the hell's going on because I made this for an audience that is no longer existent. Mm-hmm. So that's a problem. The animation can be a lot better. I need to fix up everything. So I started focusing a lot on that, and I ended at that point in time. I scripted a movie that I do want to revisit down the line that took place after the second book, and I really liked it. Like, it had a lot of people that were in it liked it too. Like, I liked the character growth and the development in there and the focus and themes and whatnot. So at that time, I was kind of like, all right, let's make that my focus, and we'll animate that. I'll do a Kickstarter because that'll be a thing, and that'll be awesome.
Yeah, and doing crowdfunding, that's a whole nother animal in and of itself beyond just making the show too. But yeah.
And then that's when you and I talk, and you're like, yeah, that won't work. Like, more eloquently than that. But
did I actually say, like, it won't work?
No, you said it so much more eloquently. No, we discussed it. You're like, why anime? You told me, like, just do a series again, dude. Like, just do a series again.
It's kind of ironic, too, because I think since then, I've been thinking about doing movies myself for a while, too, but since then, like, I've become much more enthusiastic about wanting to do movies. In fact, actually, no, you know what's really funny about, I don't think I ever told you this. I have talked about this a little bit before on some behind-the-scenes stuff for Tone, but I almost did a movie instead of doing the second season of the show.
No, you did tell me this.
Yeah, and I thought about that, and I had, like, somewhat of a plan for it, but I realized, like, you know what, I can't get across, like, the important parts of the story enough in the way that I want to, so I'm just going to be like, you know what, fuck it, whatever, it's not worth it. Yeah.
But that was what we, and it was a good discussion because it's like you were explaining why it wasn't like, no, don't do that because it won't work. It was like a full on, like, knowledgeable discussion about it. Like, people, if they're going to crowdfund something, they kind of want, like, a certain studio quality level there, especially a Kickstarter or whatnot. Because I think that was a lot of the biggest misconceptions with Kickstarter beginning was like, oh, I throw up a Kickstarter and people are going to fund me or find me. It's kind of like, no.
Yeah, I mean, like, and again, like, I get it, like, you know, because I can't expect everybody to just know. And I certainly admire, like, you know, because whenever I know people who do want to make their own original stuff, like, I have nothing but admiration for that. So please, anybody listening, don't take that as like, oh, this fucking idiot or whatever. No, like, the frustration comes from, like, no, it's not as simple as actually just this. Like, you have to. There's a lot more work and thought that has to be put into it, and there's a lot that. And look, and I even on that same note. Because I've been talking a lot about, you know, again, I'm in training mode this year to try to get better. I'm not professing to fucking know everything either. I know how to do and this applies to both you and I. You know, you and I both know how to do the bootleg online, like, you know, low tier version of making an animated show without, you know, a multi-million-dollar budget and studio backing at a network or whatever.
If
like,
only.
You know, yeah, sure, if only, and fucking everybody wants that and thinks that who wants to make a show, of course, but. You know, in terms of, like, what it is that we did, I think that, you know, I even in some of my private moments I've been talking about this a lot too, where it's like, you know, this is the playing pretend version in some way, where it's like, you know, I'm not actually in the industry yet, but I'm impatient and I just want to make shit. So like, I just make shit.
Like, it was like, I think it's a mix of that, and it's just something like there's the baseline of passion. It's just you enjoy doing it. Like, for me, like, I'm definitely not going to go into this in detail,
right?
But like, I dealt with a lot of depression and shit like that. And you knew about a lot of, like, some
course,
stuff.
Yeah.
And like, this was like my outlet. It was complete creative was my outlet. It was like, that's what got me through a lot of depression. Was getting all the stuff done. It's like, ooh, a challenge, just make it visual. That's fun. And then that just became this major outlet and got me through so much crap. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it's totally the bootleg version. It's totally like,
but also, yeah, no, but also, like, that's also not to say that there isn't value to it at all, because I think, you know, like, not in the exact same way, but I mean, like, I had a lot of, you know, self-expression kind of things about myself and my life and my own experiences through what I did with Tome and what I've done with, you know, a lot of stuff that I've created. Not necessarily everything I did on Newgrounds. That was more just like me kind of fucking around and doing whatever. But in terms of, like, something that has like a complete story, because I mean, like, and, you know, you voice your lead character, and they have a lot in common with you in terms of the struggles that they go through, and you know, and I think that there's a lot of value to that, and that's, you know, that's one of the other reasons why often I encourage people to create and to be inventive and to just do shit so they can stretch their muscles and they can see, you know, what they're capable of. and so they can do something that will be meaningful to them. And then hopefully if it's really good and if it gets out there and people enjoy it, then it's meaningful to other people as well. So
exactly, like I've had a few. It's like I don't pretend to have like a massive fan base or exposure or whatnot, but like I do have a few, and like I swear to God, like the 2 or 3 people that message me or comment consistently or just say things because they might have like I think I posted like an update video, and I think they misconstrued it that I was thinking about quitting, and so they're like, "Oh no, don't quit," and they were like all like super positive about like what it meant to them, and I was like, "Really? I totally wasn't thinking that, but that's awesome to hear." And it's like I do it because I enjoy it, and it's fun for me. But seeing that some people are getting something out of this cluster
it keeps you going.
It's yeah, exactly. And like I love doing it, and it's all like a learning experience for me, you know, because I didn't go to school for animation. It's just I went to school. I have a useless bachelor's degree in English literature, and all that stuff. But it's just something that I like doing because I like to like, oh, I would love to do that. So how am I going to learn how to do it? I'm gonna throw paint at the wall and see what sticks, and I'm gonna see something really cool and deconstruct it, and then like totally Mega Man this shit and like gain that ability. And it's true because it's like in the beginning, like in the original series, like I did a lot of Gundam references to animate, but by doing that, it's like I eventually learned how to take what was in my head and start animating it without a reference. It's like, oh, that's how that thing moves, and if it moves that way, it doesn't look disjointed or whatnot. So it's like my method of learning is completely different from like your method of learning or other people's method of learning that have like if anyone's listening, if you have the opportunity to go for school for animation and you want to, just do it. Just get the proper education.
Yeah, and I've talked about this before too. It's not necessarily required, but it's certainly if you have the ability to, it's definitely something that can help. But also, I would even say again, I think that the biggest thing that comes out of that is just the life experiences that you get. And the social aspect and everything is important because you got to have a life to draw off of stories. You can't be a storyteller if you don't also have a life with which to draw real experiences to tell and execute in your stories and with your characters and make them real, as opposed to, oh, I don't know, just watching lots of anime and playing lots of video games, because that don't fucking cut it, people.
Yeah, like I know, and I'm not gonna name names, but I was like, I know some people that have wanted to make like their own anime, and I'm like, I get excited for them, like, oh, cool, we need more people like you, we need more people to do something like original and get that on there, but then they fall off because all I'm seeing from them is them posting about, oh, I'm going to go to this con and I'm going to have a panel and we're going to have signed autographs. And I'm like, you haven't finished an episode yet.
Yeah. Like, see, okay. And here's the thing too. And actually I'll even admit, like, so back in my Newgrounds days, I actually even had kind of a negative reputation for this. I think because I came off, like, completely admittedly, very snooty about my mentality towards these kind of things. I am genuinely an advocate for new talent of all kinds, and I think that people who are driven to really want to do a good job and do something, you know, interesting, and especially if it's something different and like really like unique, you know, whether it's being a creator, being just an artist, being an actor, whatever. I think that it's I have nothing but respect, and I love that, and I always want to see that happen more, but. Excuse me, that said, my frustration with that sort of thing, and honestly, that might have even been the reason why I was very just like, fucking do this or whatever with you when we met. Yeah, is because I, like when I see like either the one that frustrates me more, I don't think that this applied to you necessarily, is people who aren't taking it seriously and treating it more like it's just like a fantasy, like, oh yeah, I'll just whatever, and then I'll become a whatever, and it'll be great. And it's like it's not the
same way.
Yeah, it's not that simple, guys. And then also when I think like ambition is wonderful, but getting overly ambitious, I think, can also be a detriment. Because I think that is often what leads to, you know, I mean, like with webcomics, I think I might have even brought up this complaint before. I know that there's a whole lot of different webcomics where it's people who, like, they've rebooted it like 3 or 4 different times because they look back on their old stuff and they're just like, no, or whatever. And then like there have been other cases on that note, though, kind of tying in with what you and I did with our properties. Two comics in particular, Flipside, which was very clever in that it picked up from where a certain point left off, but basically had it be like a soft reboot where, okay, this will be the new starting point. So people who read what came before this, then cool, they get that. But otherwise, this will be a new starting point for new readers to get into. And since then, it's been much more consistently good. And then also Alice in the Nightmare, which is another webcomic I've been reading recently. And in that case, it was the artist just got like infinitely better at character design and illustration and everything. And they wanted to have the look of it be consistent from the ground up, which is good. That's also something, and actually I want to bring this up with you too, something I think I told you about that I was really worried about when I was starting the show was I was terrified that I wasn't going to progress as an artist because I was afraid that by basically having the look of the show be consistent all throughout, that I wasn't going to improve as an artist. Now that ended up absolutely not being the case at all.
Oh God, yeah, no.
Yeah, I definitely, Tome is a show that, again, I'm fond of the TV trope term of growing the beard. That was certainly what happened with that show. But yeah, I think so with Shattered Heaven, like when you had your style kind of nailed down by the time that you started, like was that difficult, or like how do you feel like you grew over the course of doing the show?
Oh, I love that actually, because it's like, when I was trying to come up with a better style or something that I like that would work better, a lot of it went through so many different changes. Like I was looking the other day, actually not the other day, like a few weeks ago. I actually on like my Facebook, I posted like episode 1 and like episode 6 screens of the same characters. Like holy shit, okay. And it's like I feel like my progression, like character design wise and whatnot, has been like the manga character, like mangaka character, like growth, where it's like if you let's look at Kubo for a moment since Bleach is ending. Supposedly.
Hooray! I mean, hooray!
But there's a special announcement. So there's either going to be a sequel or the anime is coming back.
I wouldn't mind if the anime finished out the rest of it.
It should final act that shit. But
carry on.
But like you look at his like Bleach, like the first chapter of Bleach, and you look now and you're like, holy crap, that's tremendously different. So I would often go back to like the beginning chapters and I would read to see if I could point out where the change happened. But it's also freaking gradual that you eventually like, wait, when did that change?
Well, well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that too, because that's a good comparison. But I would even also say like an even more noticeable change compared to Kubo would be like Oda or even Toriyama, to be honest. If you look between like the Dragon Ball era of the comic and then like what became for the anime the Z material, it's like night and fucking day. Do you feel like it's that big of a difference, or is it more like Kubo where it's like you can still tell?
In the animation, you can still tell, but I think it's more polished right now.
Okay.
In my individual like illustration artwork, it's tremendously different.
Okay.
Because like last year, I think I drew 200 pieces of like character art in it's like I've been drawing a lot of summer pieces, mainly because it forces me to practice anatomy, and it forces me to better understand proportions and whatnot.
Don't just use summer as an excuse. Just draw naked people all the time. Do it.
Butts all the time, dude. But no, it's like what I eventually started doing was I started using like life images or like, oh, look at that stock photo, and just taking real life photos or whatnot, and just using that as a reference to draw from that to practice anatomy and get better at it and get better with proportions. And changing programs helped too, because I used to draw in Flash and I was like, that's stupid. Now I'm using Manga Studio, Clip Studio Pro, whatever the hell you want. I just never liked Photoshop. I was never good with it. But like in the beginning animation, like I wrote it wrong and I copped to this. Like the first 2 episodes, I fully acknowledge that they're very hard to go, because it's like when I was writing it, I was like, okay, I would love to do some of this, but I know I'm not there yet in terms of skill, and I don't want to do it crappy and ruin the moment. So let's just write some basic talking dialogue, foreshadowing stuff that is going to be boring, but it's going to force me to get the crap out, literally. Like, let's just draw and get that crap out and then feel better. Like, eventually I'm going to do the anime thing, and I am going to combine season 1, like episode 1 and 6 as a OVA, whatever you want to call it. And I'm going to have some polished up animation on some certain things. I'm gonna fix because I had like some weird cuts too. It was very rough, and like the pros thing was I didn't realize it until after I was done. I didn't actually name characters in the first episode. Like the main ones, yeah, their names were said, but a lot of the other ones I didn't. Because I didn't realize it because I was still in prose mode where I was like, oh yeah, writing, and like so and so said this and so said that, and I was like, oh right, not prose. That doesn't work.
Well, also sometimes like that's a challenge in of itself to like not have characters say each other's names so often like it's a fucking 90s anime dub. What are you going to do today, Ranma?
But no, I agree, and it's like so I'm happy looking back at them because it's while I cringe at some of them, but it's a starting point, and I can see where I grew. But so yeah, definitely from episode 1 to 6, I think the growth is tremendous. Between line art cleanliness and more in between frames and experimenting more with body language and trying to be a little more expressive. But again, when you're doing this and you have other jobs and like freelance work, and it's very hard to balance the time.
Yeah, I mean, because that's the other truth of the matter is that often when you get invested into doing these kind of projects, it's not necessarily going to be, in fact, very often it just flat out is not your bread and butter. I mean, like Tome, I made a fair amount of money on Tome, like especially when the crowdfunding campaign, but that was all typically just spent towards doing the show itself. Right. But either way, it's not exactly going to be like, like a smash hit, like an Eddsworld level, like you can build an empire off of that. Which, because Eddsworld is one of the very, very rare cases where like this is a fully original IP. That's why I respect it so much, and Ruby as well. Even though like Ruby, I'm not even into Ruby, but like I respect. I can just admit that. But again, like I have nothing for respect for God rest his soul, Monty and the rest of the crew at Rooster Teeth for doing it. Because they built an empire off of an original IP, regardless of what I think of it. And same thing with Eddsworld. For when also God rest his soul, when Ed was alive. I've talked a little bit about that too. I did a Kirblog. I think it might have even been like last year about just like digital entertainments and telling stories with through new media in general. I think it is great that a lot more people are wanting to get into that. I think kind of going back more on point with that too. So what kind of things, now that you have gone through a lot of the same kind of process as me with your show, what kind of things would you suggest to people who are thinking about wanting to make their own show? And like what kind of planning things would you suggest, and what kind of pitfalls to avoid, kind of stuff like that, do you think?
Basically, one, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, I think is tremendously important before you go forward. And with like right reasons, I mean like, why are you doing it? Are you doing it just because you're like, I want to make an anime, or like I'm going to do these things and we're going to be internet famous? Or are you doing it because you have a story that you're passionate about that means something to you, that you want to present it? And you're doing it mainly for yourself. It's like it sounds selfish, but I think if you're doing a project because it means something to you, you're going to be able to endure any like negative criticism, like troll comments or just anything stupid, because ultimately at the end of the day, you're doing it for yourself.
Yeah. You have to be committed.
Yeah, I think you need to get that out of the way first. After that, I think you need to honestly plan it. Like have the story written out. Like you mentioned, plotting the points of like major events and what's going on. Know where you're going. Like you don't necessarily need to know every moment, but at least know where you're starting, know the middle, and know the end. Like you want to know where a climax or like a rising action thing is going to happen to like incite the main journey for the protagonist, and then where he's going to end, and then you can deal with the fluff in between. But have a basic understanding of where you're going, and then understand what type of animation you can do. And knowing the programs out there. Personally, I still like Flash the best. I'm going to be messing with Toon Boom, but I like Flash probably the most because it's like, here's a timeline, there's some keyframes, and there's some stuff, go. Where it's like other stuff, it's a little more involved, where I like to just be able to draw, make a frame, make the next frame, and hit enter, and it's just done. But there are better...
I was snorting some cocaine while you were doing your answer.
No, it's fine. I'm just upset I wasn't
That's a joke, ladies and gentlemen. Sorry, Carrie.
But that's the thing. It's like like going forward, I'm gonna be trying out other animation software, but I do recommend so understand why you're doing it. Do it for the right reasons.
Well, I want to add on to that too. Actually, the bit of the right reason stuff. That is very often. I've probably said that to you a lot too. Or like that's often my philosophy of like, it should be for unselfish reasons because, and I think that it really does matter. It might not seem like it, but it really does matter because I think that being motivated by money, like, the reality is you're probably not going to make a lot of money. There's never any major guarantee that, no matter how knowledgeable you are in like the YouTube analytics systems or whatever resources you have whatever.
It's just made.
Yeah, well, it's just difficult. And it's never really a guarantee that that's going to turn out that way. So like there's that. But also what I think is actually even more of a detriment than like, wanting to make a lot of money is the more common kind of like hurdle I see, which is people who want to like become popular, which you were just kind of alluding to before. Like I've talked many times about, during my Newgrounds era, like when I was, very brash and, just consumed with all this other bullcrap, like I was, the Parody Rangers and the Nintendo collabs and a lot of that stuff like came about because I was doing stuff for the wrong reasons. I was so, like drunk with the feeling of, oh boy, people give a shit about what I do if I make video game parodies and unoriginal works or whatever, and like that's what's having value to me right now. Even though like truly deep down, that wasn't what it was about. It was rather when I say what it was about, as in like why I was doing what I was doing in the first place, why I was choosing to do animation, as my life's work, is because I wanted to make my own original stories and et cetera. But it took me a long time to get over that because the feeling of like other people giving a shit about what I was making was so intoxicating at the time, that like I wasn't even really focusing on, what was deep down most important to me. I was so motivated by, again, what I perceived to be a wrong and selfish reason that it fucked me up for a while, and it was, obviously it was an important lesson that I learned, but and look, we're fucking artists. We all want a little bit of attention. I'm not going to deny that that's certainly not part of it. Absolutely,
it shouldn't be all of it.
No, but it shouldn't, and it really shouldn't be the motivator, because I think that when you have something like that as the motivator, it fucks you up, and then you're not producing good work. You're not doing a good job. And, because you're being motivated by, flimsy kind of, like illusions of grandeur kind of shit, So that's where a lot of my frustration, I was kind of saying earlier, like, again, like back in my Newgrounds days, a lot of people, I think, and again, probably because I was coming off very like elitist about it, but a lot of people kind of interpreted my whole aggravation with people who would, who think that they know what they're doing, or like are convinced that they know what they're doing, and then they go about it and they have this like, not realistic kind of envisionment in a bad kind of way. I would get frustrated with that, and that would come off to me as like, you're not even taking this seriously. Like, you're not even really like trying to do this in the way that is going to get you what you're going after. You're just trying to, you have this wrong perception based off of, whatever such and such negative thing or whatever, And so that frustrated me. And I've tried on that same kind of note, like I've tried to lighten up a little bit. I'm sure you probably have too, if you've been annoyed by the same kind of thing.
I'm trying,
because I know you've also I know you've told me about some of your own personal experiences like that.
Yeah,
I don't know if you want to share any of those necessarily. But,
oh, God. They're pretty much the same thing that you're dealing with. And I vaguely hinted at them as much as I'm going to.
Yeah,
is just like, just do it for the right reasons, please. Like, I've had someone contact me, or they were like, "Oh, we're holding auditions and we're gonna get TV Tokyo to do this," and it's like, okay, stop.
Stop. Well,
it's like, stop, please stop. You're off. But another thing just popped in my head that I found, like, as part of a motivator, is like when you get so passionate into a story, and I know you had this too. Like, I think 5 was one of them for you. like the episodes that you really wanted to have animated. Like,
yeah.
It's like, because that's what this finale is for me. It's like I've wanted this animated for years. Of like,
and the finale too. I mean, without spoiling it, in case anybody out there hasn't watched Tome yet, but I mean, there were like certain shots and certain scenes and certain lines of dialogue that I was waiting for all that time to do, and I was so excited to finally do it, and it was as great as I hoped too.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic motivator. Like that was another reason it helped me like reboot the thing, was because in between my purgatory of what the hell am I doing, I actually did this in audio drama form, and I cast Kira as the main the main female character, and just because I wanted to get it done. Like she was in the original series as someone different, but I was like, all right, I know you, we've become friends. Do you want to do this? And when she did it, I was like, she fits this character so well, and it's such mediocre writing. I really want to do this better, and that kind of helped propel it. And I'm very happy with it. Like I joke on Twitter and I joke on Facebook. I'm like, oh my god, this is horrible right now because I'm going through that pre-release anxiety where it's like I'm putting this out finally, and holy crap, this is gonna go away. I don't know. It's weird.
I would actually extrapolate on that point too. I think that having again, even if you don't have access to a full crew of people, but I think one of the early Kirblog's that I did a while back was about animation and working together. And I think that if people just get together with some friends and they just try to do shit and do a good job, they can really do something cool. And even if it's not going to be a super runaway success, there's still a lot of merit to doing that. And actually, that kind of leads into my main bit of advice is there's a great thing I heard. I know it's not originally from Sonny Strait, but he made a great point about this before, where there's the old saying of everybody has 1,000 bad drawings in them, and the sooner you get them out of your system, the better off you're going to be, and etc. And that's absolutely true. And I think that when you're a creator and you want to make your own, long form content or anything, or even if you want to do a webcomic or try to make a game or something, anything like that, it's all a learning experience and it's all an exercise. It's all going to make you better, so that and again, like I said, for me, I'm proud of what I did on Tome. I'm very, very proud. I'm very appreciative for everything that came from doing that show and from after it was over. But I'm I want to get better, so that the next thing that I do like that, will be even bigger and better. That's kind of what my goal is. Mm-hmm. And and you don't want to rest on your laurels. You don't want to take the easy way out. You want to progress. You want to grow. You want to ascend to the next level of Super Saiyan.
You showed me something recently, and I hated you for it because, I'm currently working on because I do short episodes too, like the joking around episodes, and I'm wrapping up that one now. So the finale is going to be released, and then probably not so long after that, I'm releasing the final Shattered Heaven short. Uh-huh. Because going back to actually briefly before I go forward to the other point, it's the whole teamwork thing is because Shattered Heaven is the season finale. It's not the series finale, but it is going on break because now I'm finally 100% transitioning into this other animation project that you're a part of.
Well, only somewhat.
Yeah. Somewhat.
It's more of Kira's thing, but
it's Kira's thing. But you did the character designs, and I'm doing the animation. That was funny too, because when that came out, where Kira Buckland had it's called Dragon Star. She had an audio drama of it years ago. Chris was you were the main guy character in it and whatnot. And I remember she was talking everyone was out in the city at this time, and we were joking around briefly about it. Oh yeah, you should animate. She's I would love to animate it. I was like, Chris, you should animate. No, fuck it, you animate it. I'm busy. I was like,
yeah.
Okay. And that's how that happened.
Yeah, it was.
That's how it happened. But fuck, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, working together with people.
Oh yeah, but the working together with people. So that's I'm looking forward to that because it's the first time that I'm going to be animating something that's not my own IP.
Uh-huh.
So that kind of inspires me. It's all right, I'm going to try different angles. Let's try. I have a few other animation books. I don't have time to take a storyboarding class, but I did get a book on storytelling that I'm reading the crap out of that. Yeah. I want to experiment on a lot of different things. But so I'm working on a very chill episode, but you showed me something that was freaking fantastic recently, and I was like, God damn it! Now I want to go try something else. And so, I mean, it's in a good way because it like motivated me because there's something else that I want to have animated down the line. And I have no idea how the hell I'm going to do it, but I'm going to start messing with it, like around with it in animatic form. And like that's the whole thing too with Tome and everything. Yeah, you can definitely see the improvement and the progression over time. And like I think the best thing about Tome, it wasn't just like the animation standpoint or even the stories. It was like the full thing, like everything about it. Like your cast was phenomenal, the directing was great, the audio quality was great, the story was good, the characters were believable, and like the animation worked. So it's like it was one of those things where it was very rare to see an actual series get done.
It's because of the friends that I had. I had a lot of friends who were better at individual aspects of those things you just listed that I was able to depend on, who helped me with those things, and then they made them a lot better as a result. And you know,
mine is building up.
Yeah, like the show wouldn't have been the same without that, like flat out. Like if I had done it almost entirely by myself and just the voice actors, like there's no way it would have been anywhere near as good. So
it's like I'm building that network. And it's like I have a lot of the same friends, and it's really cool. Like I remember, especially with this finale, there's like a scene that it was originally like a minute and a half, and I think I showed you the like rough of it to get your idea on it, and then that turned into. I think it turned into like a 4-minute scene.
Was it the big dramatic?
It's the climax scene.
Okay.
So that like I upped that, and it forced me to try things I didn't do. Like I never, and because I always, and this is a problem too. It's like I always animated what was on the script originally. I never really. It's like okay, I animated the talking, and now we're moving on. But like around 4 and on, I've been trying to add more storytelling through animation. Which it's like something I never really did. Like mech scenes, sure, and they're fighting and whatnot, but like expressions and no audio or whatnot. I tried, really
especially when you go from like primarily like your bread and butter is writing, and you're switching into an animated like a visual format. Like that is a whole learning experience in and unto itself as well. So
that's been fun.
Yeah. Has it though?
Oh, it's been a pain. I won't lie, it's been a pain in the ass. There's been times where I was like, "Fuck this shit." Like I'm just like I need to walk away for like a minute or two, or whatnot. But overall, it's been like there's been ups and downs, and it's like I will acknowledge that I have a lot of talented friends and a lot more well-known friends, and there are times when I get a little envious, or like I'll feel like maybe not even envious, but like I feel like lower. For some reason, like I don't feel like I'm on like a level or like deserving of that friendship because I don't fit in, because I'm like, okay, they're up here and they have all of these like networking things and exposures and everyone knows them and I'm just here. Like I remember Otakon, I was hanging out with Jesse, and I remember like a fan of hers came up to her and like was talking, but I was with her, and he's like, "Oh, and who's he?" And like when they found out I wasn't like anyone super famous, they just stopped giving a shit and just
that person was just being rude for one thing, but
no, I know, but still, it was just like one of those things. Is like, yeah, that's a thing, and it's like it's not a main motivation, but there are times it's like I suffer with it. I think everyone does at times where you see a friend that's a little more successful or has a little more, and you wonder, oh, am I like still good enough to be friends, or stupid crap like that. But it's like overall, I've been very blessed to have the friends that I have and to meet the people that I've met. Like I'm happy you and I became friends. Like we met at Brittany's thing, but we didn't really start becoming friends until like the con the following year that we were both guests at, which is where your first Kirblog was.
Yep.
I mean, with guests anyway, and then when you like, because that was the other thing too. I was kind of dreading certain things with the finale. It's like I still needed to like recast like the main antagonist ultimately for the full series, and I was like, I don't know what the fuck I'm gonna do. And then you were there, and you're like, "Yo, you need help?" I was like, "Yes." and that worked out really well. So it's like, becoming good friends with you, and someone that I've always respected, and like where it's very similar. It's like, okay, we both had this creative things. We're doing long form storytelling, so that was very important. That helped out tremendously. Kira as well. Even Brittany has always been like super supportive of me, and I've just been really freaking lucky actually with all my friends and like voice actors and sound designers. So I think getting in a good environment of people helps your motivation if you ever like, especially if you deal with things or you feel like you're losing it at times. Being surrounded by good people, I think, helps tremendously. is what I'm saying.
Jeez.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like there's been so much that I've talked about, the advent of more people wanting to become creators and the access that people have of, I know I've said this 1,000 times as well, but it still always bears repeating is, we live in a great time of where anybody can just make shit and put it out there, and it's there and it exists, and it's a gift because you don't need necessarily a multi-billion-dollar budget and a fucking network deal or whatever,
right,
to tell a story, to make something. If anything, you have the freedom to just do it. You don't have anybody overseeing you. Not that isn't also helpful too to have that, but
right. But that's something I experienced in publishing.
It allows you to make your own experience. Like you can. That's the other thing too is like we were talking earlier about college. If you can go to college, please do. It can be incredibly helpful. But also, you can make your own experience. You can teach yourself. You can get better on your own terms in your own way. You have to really put in the time and effort into it, and you have to really figure out what is necessary so that you can get better at doing what you're doing. And
be open to learning too.
Yeah,
it's like don't like close yourself off where like you're learning something, and if someone wants to give you advice or give you help, don't discount it or ignore it or feel like it's a personal attack, because that's the only way you're really going to learn. Between like learning on your own, like that's my stories. Like, I learned on my own, but being able to acknowledge and recognize the people that have more experience and will know more than you, like go to them for help, or if they offer their help, take it. Learn from the people that have already gone down that path and take a lot of information from them, because you will grow tremendously from that.
And catch lots of Pokemon. Believe in yourself.
When the servers work.
Be a hero. No, that's not real Pokemon. I fucking said it. No, whatever. I don't have anything. I don't have anything against Pokemon Go. I'm just fucking around.
I was literally just listening to your previous Kirblog about the reboots, and that's why I had to.
Yeah, but Doug Walker and I talked about Pokemon Go for like 5 minutes in the last one as well. So I can't get away from that shit. Anyway, hey, thank you, Adam, for joining me.
Thanks for having me and doing it.
For sure. I hope that this was getting across kind of the overall voice of what you wanted to say.
Yeah, no, it was a good discussion, and that's what I wanted to have, was a good discussion with someone else that's done this, that can understand like the feelings behind it, and just again having a good discussion about a topic that I think a lot of people love to listen about and hear about and have direction on how to do it themselves.
Yes. Well, I think that's gonna wrap us up. So, would you like to plug your social media?
Sure, why not? You can. I have a Twitter. It's at Chris Tilford, because that was my author name. Shattered Heaven. I do have a Facebook for that. It's literally facebook.com/Shattered Heaven. One word. And my YouTube, which I'm sure we'll link it in here anyway. It's Azure Pro Studios, because that was in the time when I wanted to have a studio, and that was a cool thing to do, and I couldn't change it.
And the studio, as in my house.
Yeah, the problem with that, I was like, I should have changed that.
No, that was when I had. You were watching a Neo C animation, like Neo-C.
I still have it. Like, I still have it, like, on my opening cards, because, I do professional freelance graphic work, so I use that.
Oh, okay.
So it's like...
Well, that's for a brand. I just did it because I was like, yeah, everybody was like, this is a Butt Plug Studios cartoon. I was just like, it's just my house. It's just me making a cartoon and putting it out. Who gives a fuck? Whatever. So go to buttplugstudios.com. That's not a real thing. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Excuse me. All right, well, I'm going to end this train wreck that I've turned this topic into.
The best way to end it.
Hooray. Thanks again. This was awesome. And I guess in the comments below, I'll just say, and in fact, Adam, if you want to join on this too, If you guys have any other kind of more specific questions that might have to do directly with what we've talked about, not necessarily as individual topics, although if they do work for future topics, then maybe we can go into that too. Leave a comment, and maybe me and Adam could respond and give some other additional advice or information or whatever if you want to take a look at that. Mm-hmm. And otherwise, as for the usual, if you have ideas for just general Kirblog topics related to this or otherwise, leave a comment about that too, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, all the usual shite. That's it for me. That's it for Adam. And we will see you all next time. Bye.
Later.